Hello, everybody. My name is Amol Patel. I'm in Los Angeles. You're watching the Smoking Hot Coffee Show, where we interview startup founders. Today, we have an amazing interview with Josh Breinlinger from SigmaWest.com. So, he was number 4 at oDesk. It's amazing to hear his tips on how to build a marketplace. So, Jeff, tell us more about Sigma West.
Well, they've got a pretty cool portfolio. You guys can go check out at their website. Really cool companies, a lot of marketplaces, like you said. Josh has intimate knowledge with how the marketplaces work. We, of course, go into the chicken and egg problem,
Right.
as you know, we so often love to talk about. Um, what did you learn from this, Amul?
I have to say, he was willing to share a lot of some of the early days back in oDesk. You know how he was
Mm-hmm.
actually calling people in the very beginning. They started off as a marketplace for PHP programmers, calling some of the earlier customers that were trying to hire programmers. How they didn't really have all this back end stuff together, and how there was a lot of manual work in the beginning.
Yeah,
Um,
no, as I put it, he was the algorithm, right?
yeah,
Like kind of connecting the dots where, yeah, they eventually automated it, obviously.
yeah.
Uh,
And he talks about their secret sauce, and that's because when oDesk was got going back in 2004, there was the Guru.com I think back then, and Rent-A-Coder and some of the other competitors, but none of them had a mechanism that would build trust with a person that's
right.
buying services. And one of the
Hmm.
ways that oDesk transformed that whole thing was they took screenshots. So
Built a
when
tool.
a tool, yeah, a tool so you can check up on these people if they're actually doing the work, if they're just farting off or giving it to somebody
Hmm.
else and charging you a lot of money, and they were the first ones to do that, and so that helped out tremendously. And now, what did he say? 3 million people, 3 million freelancers
Yeah,
on that
I
site.
think on the homepage,
I
yeah, it
mean,
says something like that.
it's some crazy. I mean, Odesk is massive, and so
Incredibly huge.
he's no longer with oDesk. He's moved on. Now he's a full-time venture capitalist. He looks at lots of startups, many of them in the marketplace space.
Hmm.
Marketplaces, for me, are a big part of why I love startups. I think startups are basically a connection tool, and the marketplace is a perfect example of that. Airbnb is a notable recent huge marketplace that came out of nowhere. Many people had homes with extra rooms, and people went on vacations. Those houses stayed empty, and
Yep.
Airbnb now has $1 billion business because of this.
Yeah, and we talk about another great startup out of Santa Monica, I think, or at least they have an office in the co-working space over there. But Uber, the taxi service,
Yep.
another great marketplace. A lot of them are driven off mobile now. We
Hmm.
talk about some of the other trends in the marketplaces, and we also talk about so his other venture. And so he has another venture, Rev.com.
Yeah, and so Jeff's got it pulled up on the screen here. So this is another thing. I think he's a board member on the seat there, and here we go. Audio transcription for $1, business translation 10 cents per word, certified translation 33. So here we are, sort of vetted, small, sort of structured business services
Mhm.
marketplace. So, in some ways, we could see this as sort of maybe a premium version of oDesk, and I can totally see new marketplaces building on some of the successes that oDesk has gotten, where maybe it's more of a vetted service, maybe it's more of a curated marketplace. What do you
Yeah, I
think?
think this you're paying for services where on oDesk you're paying for the talent,
Yeah,
the individual worker, whereas I think Rev is abstracting the relationship with the worker for you,
right.
which is great. You know, when you need that, and they create an interface that you can get that task done even easier. Yeah, I mean oDesk is awesome. We talk about VC and technology and the landscape and
Hmm.
what entrepreneurs should be thinking if they're pitching a VC and what some of the common mistakes they make are,
Right.
and have a pretty great conversation. Learned a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. He definitely is very bullish on mobile. He thinks it's an amazing
Yeah,
enabler. He
of
thinks
course.
there's going to be many startups in the space. He actually gives several different industries that he thinks are ripe for disruption when it comes to marketplaces. And learn more about that in the interview. And with that, I'd like to mention that we really need more subscribers to our channel and on iTunes. So please click on the subscribe button on iTunes and on YouTube, and share this with your friends and family.
if you guys like this episode, please do share it with your friends and check out some of the other episodes. We talk about a couple of them in this show,
Yeah.
some of the previous conversations we've had. So please, look back at our catalog.
Yep. All right. So with that, let's go to the interview. What was it like being number 4 at oDesk? oDesk obviously is a very large crowdsourced marketplace now for work. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, it was a blast. So the full backstory is I was actually a mechanical engineer in college at MIT, did consulting for about 4 years, and I moved out to the Valley and joined oDesk about 9 years ago.
Okay.
And, as you know, I joined when there was basically just 4 people, and I took a sales position. Didn't know anything about sales.
Wow. Wait a
but
second.
basically-
MIT grad, mechanical engineer, takes a sales position at a new fledgling startup. What? How did they convince you to do this?
Yeah.
What made you feel
How
like
do
you can do
convince
this?
them? Yeah.
So what happened is one of my very good friends from college, a guy by the name of Jason Chicola, who will come back later in the story because we're co-founders of a new venture now. But
Okay.
he joined very early. He joined as the third guy there. And basically he called me up one day when there was 3 people and he said, "Hey, we need someone to do sales." And I was just kind of like, "What are you talking about? That doesn't, like, I'm a mechanical engineer. But I don't know the first thing about sales. Why do
I
you want me
love
to do
this.
sales?"
All right.
Wow.
And so, he said, look, we're not really scaling up a big sales team. We basically, what he told me is, we need somebody that's smart that can talk on the phone.
Okay.
And so basically, I started part-time.
Okay.
And I started part-time working out of my apartment in Boston.
Okay.
I would wake up at 6 in the morning and start calling customers in London.
Okay.
And then I would, run away on my lunch break and lock myself in my office and call some customers on the East Coast.
When you say
and then,
customers, you mean potential people that'll buy services off of the 50 PHP programmers that were on the system, or
exactly.
getting more programmers on, or okay.
Yeah, it was the buyers. It was the employers
Okay.
on the system.
Okay.
So, it was just sort of interesting. The very first sales call I'd ever done in my life, I remember it very distinctly. I was so nervous. I was like, I had rehearsed in the mirror, like this little script. I didn't know the first thing about what I was doing.
Man, cold calling is the worst, especially for engineering types. No.
Right.
What's funny is, before I had done the sales call, when I took the job, I basically said, like, okay, how am I going to learn sales? So, I read a couple books, but I wanted to see it live. So I went to a bunch of used car lots. I went and attended a whole bunch of timeshare presentations.
Oh, I love that.
And I was like the most annoying guy ever because I just, like, everything the sales guy would say, I would just be like, "Oh, hey, so does that really work on customers? Like, when you say something like this, how many people start buying?"
Oh, that is so cool.
Awesome. So smart. That's an education hack right there.
That is really cool. Yeah, that is total education hack. Okay. All right.
Genius.
That was my initial education hack. Unfortunately, it teaches you bad sales practices since those really aren't the best examples. But
It's a good start, right?
Jeff and I talk about this marketplace, the chicken egg problem, all the time when we're reviewing startups. Clearly, oDesk has got a massive marketplace going. So you guys focus mostly on trying to get the buyers on because obviously the service providers were available.
there's a long history, and of course you need to balance supply and demand. And I can only tell you what happened in the early stages. You can look on their site now, and they're up to I believe over 3 million freelancers.
Right.
But yeah, it was always a balance. We started with a core of open source PHP programmers. It was almost exclusively. We had 80 freelancers in the entire network when I joined.
Right.
And so yeah, initially, we had that pool, and then we set about, advertising, did a lot of Google AdWords and things like that.
Okay.
To get a lot of those people working. And then once we got
so
those
you
people
used the
working,
AdWords to try to get the service providers initially.
Actually, the service providers initially were direct recruiting efforts. We had a recruiter on the ground in Russia.
Oh, okay. Wow.
We hired basically, effectively one of our first engineers became a recruiter.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then we used AdWords to find the employers.
And then you did the follow-up sort of cold, rather the warm lead. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, basically. So, it was a lot of advertising on AdWords. It would get somebody, typically like a Silicon Valley startup type company
Yeah.
to come in and say, like, yeah, I'm looking to hire a couple PHP programmers.
Okay.
And then in the beginning, I've said this many times, it really was nothing like what you see today.
Right.
It was a staffing firm,
Right.
more or less.
Yeah, staffing firm.
So,
yep.
you know, we'd have all this messaging on the website that was like, hire a PHP programmer instantly in Russia and all this great stuff.
Right.
And then you fill in the form,
Yeah.
and it just says, thanks, we'll get back to you.
Right.
And then I would call every single customer and talk to them about what they're looking for. And,
Wow.
Okay.
So you were the algorithm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he was the algorithm.
Nice.
Yeah. Wow, this is so great. I have to tell you, it's a real treat because everybody's trying to build marketplaces. Many startups we talk to and review are all building marketplaces or connections, and there are many even getting into the whole micro task, area now. It's a real treat to hear the early days. So what are the key what are the key levers that you guys really were able to execute on that built the marketplace and balanced it? What were those key things?
What I would say is, and what I've learned and taken to some of the new ventures. So, as you know, my role now is as a venture partner at Sigma West,
Yeah.
and co-founder and a board member at a company called Rev, which is basically providing translation and audio transcription services.
Okay.
And we're really working with the best freelancers we can find,
Awesome.
and really owning the whole customer experience.
Okay.
The single biggest lessons learned, the macro themes are basically reduce customer effort. What oDesk did beautifully is they took something that was unbelievably hard, outsourcing work or like finding freelancers anywhere in the world.
Right.
And this is 2004 when we were getting going, and outsourcing was big. Everybody was talking about, but everybody was talking about all the complex challenges, and nobody had really dreamed of creating a completely distributed team of designers in Vietnam and customer service in the Philippines and development in India. That was unbelievably rare, and everybody thought it was impossible. And oDesk basically made it easy.
Well, at the time, wasn't I'm sorry to interrupt, wasn't Rent-A-Coder around and some of the the Rent-A-Coder's interface, by the way, was horrendous. And I mean, it was really bad, Jeff. I know I poo-poo developers all the time, but it was horrible. Do you believe that maybe the user interface for oDesk back in the early days was helped differentiate you guys and separate it?
The biggest thing I would say wasn't necessarily the user interface, but it was really the business model. So all of those other ones, the Rent-A-Coders and Elances and some of the other early players, they were all fixed price projects. So you'd post a job, you say, I need a website, and then a whole bunch of people would say, sure, I'll do it for $100.
Okay.
And oDesk's model was totally different. You'd say, I need a website designer.
Okay.
And a whole bunch of people would bid and say, like, yeah, I can work on it, I'll charge $15 an hour.
Okay.
And that is a really big difference. And I think what happens in a lot of the fixed price projects is it trends towards the really small projects,
right?
Because it's really hard to spec out a $10,000 project and just throw it over the wall and get any sort of good results.
At which time did you guys have the sort of auto screenshot work diary functionality? Was that right from the get-go? Was that the key differentiator in the product, or?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So basically, the work diary was in there from day one. That was one of the core innovations of oDesk that really enabled the entire hourly model.
Oh, I love that. Hey, man, Big Brother, that's all we need to feel more comfortable.
No.
But you know what I meant.
I'm a little as an advocate, but yeah, it's great. I mean, I think that's a big breakthrough for you guys to make a difference there.
It's huge. I think that it's a phenomenal system that really provides guaranteed work to all of the employers. You just know that people are working and doing your job. And for all the freelancers, it provides guaranteed payment because at the end of the day, that's the biggest hassle for them.
So how did this buddy of yours convince you? Like number 3, number 4, like what? Tell me, give us the secret sauce here to get a guy like yourself on board.
It's the same thing. A lot of great startups will tell you. It's all your best hires are from referrals, from your network.
Yeah.
And so I trusted him. He trusted me. He brought me on board.
Okay.
And it was, like I said, it was part-time contracting in the beginning,
Okay,
so it
yeah.
wasn't a huge deal.
Yeah, right.
But the very first sales call, I was giving a demo, and I was all nervous on that call. But then as soon as he saw what we were doing,
Yeah.
he literally, the customer just took over the call. He was like, "Oh my God, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen."
Gotcha. So you're saying did the screenshots sell him? Well, what sold these guys? Because there was Rent-A-Coder and these other ones out there.
Yeah. On that call, it was the screenshots.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So tell me, what was the biggest challenge or the thing you learned the most about trying to attract those first big projects? Like, you've got all these coders. You said you were getting, PHP. Were those the keywords? Were people just searching for PHP programmers? Like, and before this sort of thing even existed, how did you sell people on the idea of using virtual workers to do? You're saying bigger projects than just a website, right? Like, not $100 site, but maybe a $10,000 project that is a startup.
Yeah, it was really a change in it. I sort of described it as a missionary sale, sort of. A lot of people came in, they were sort of thinking, I need a website for a couple $1,000s.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I would try to I was like, no. That's not what you really want. What you really want is a great designer to work with you, because your specs are going to change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, we've been doing this long enough. We know that things are going to change. You're going to have these requirements that are constantly changing, and then they're going to get a little frustrated if you're on a fixed price. And so it was convincing people to really think of it as you're hiring a team as opposed to you're buying a project.
Right.
And so it was a hard road initially. That was a tough thing to convince people of, but obviously it worked.
Obviously it worked.
Switch over in thinking, yeah, definitely.
Holy cow! Obviously it worked. Yes, it worked. It really worked. All right, so holy cow! All right, so what are you doing now? Tell us a little bit more where things are at.
Yeah, so basically I moved on in 2010. I did a brief stint at Adroll, at ADROLL.
Yeah.
Which is a fantastic display advertising company.
We've got Adroll coming on in a couple of weeks, hopefully, so we'll definitely be talking to them.
Cool. Who from Adroll?
I think it's Adam. Does that ring a bell?
Adam Burke?
Yeah, Adam Burke. Yep, that's him.
Yeah, right on. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, I got the opportunity to join Sigma Partners. So Sigma Partners co-led the Series A round in oDesk back in 2004.
Okay.
So I've known the guys here for 9 years.
Wow. Okay.
And once I had moved on, they said, like, hey, we think you'd be great in venture. Why don't you come join us?
Right. Okay.
And so I did.
Right.
I joined and entered the VC world about 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
And we split the east and west coast of Sigma Partners about 1.5 years ago. And so we've closed a $124 million fund that we're actively investing.
Okay.
We look at a lot of B2B SaaS, a lot of cloud providers.
$120 million fund. That's a fairly decent sized fund. What's the average? What are you guys usually investing? A couple $100,000, $1 million? What are you guys looking at?
Typically anything from 1 to 6.
Okay.
I would say mostly Series A, but we do some Series B, and we do some earlier stage seed investments.
Okay. Talk to us a little about the earlier stage. I'm more interested in the seed stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, the seed stage is hard, because I think, obviously there's so many different accelerators and incubators out there, and I don't think all of the models work for those sort of plays, and I think most incubators out there haven't really done a great job of getting well-funded companies. There's a very small handful and high concentration of obviously some great ones like Y Combinator,
Okay.
but there's just not a lot to go around.
Okay.
Our seed deals that we do, we look for the same things that we'd look for in any Series A deal. So great team, great product, massive market, disruptive technology, all those sort of things.
Okay.
And we really put it through the same process. We just think of it in the same way as a Series A deal. And so, if we are looking at a seed investment, if we like it enough, we'll frankly, maybe try to encourage them to take a little bit more money, and let's go, more full steam. Let's
Are
go.
there a lot of seed guys coming at you, specifically you? Do you tend to favor marketplaces? Do you look for guys that are trying to build these marketplaces that got a little bit of traction going, got a little secret sauce maybe happening with the screenshots or some other way of
Yep.
enabling technology or trust technology? But that's what it is. It's more of a trust thing. Are there any? Is that your specialty?
Yeah, absolutely. When I started in venture 2.5 years ago, I didn't know what I was doing, and so I looked at an LED deal. There was some fancy new white LED lights for like controlled growth of stuff, and I looked at a wireless networking deal, and I just realized it was a waste of everybody's time. I was like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't even know what questions to ask.
Right.
Sure.
Seems neat, but I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
Domain expertise, right?
And so basically, I've really honed in on I look at some SaaS providers in areas that I understand because I ran marketing and sales for a number of years. So I look at a lot of, I would say, SMB SaaS type plays.
Okay.
But I would say mostly I do look at marketplaces.
Okay.
And it's a great time because I think.
Oh my God! Everybody's doing marketplaces. It seems like it's every other startup's like some marketplace. We're putting together car mechanics. Oh, we're putting together hairstylists.
So what are the themes you're seeing in the marketplaces, or the technologies, or what's really launching them right now?
Yeah, I think one obvious mega trend is that obviously everyone's carrying a smartphone around now, so you can do true local. Call it local crowdsourcing, local marketplaces. Uber couldn't exist without everybody having a smartphone.
Right.
Neither could half the other marketplaces that are going on right now. You have the gig walks and the field agents and the Curies, which are doing some really interesting things. You have obviously the Ubers and Lyfts and sidecars of the world doing very, very cool things, but it also empowers things like relay rides to function better, and things like flight car to function better. So the mobile aspect is really cool.
Wow. So you're definitely bullish on mobile, being able to create
mobile first before web, probably in these cases. It sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, I think at least some people are doing mobile first. I think if I was starting one today, I would do mobile first.
Okay.
You can just create a better experience because I think it all comes back to the whole customer effort thing. All of this stuff was possible before. Like, imagine a Craigslist, right? You can list an item and sell it on Craigslist and then get some emails, go find the location. You can do all the stuff.
Right.
Well, with mobile, you already know the location. You're connected with Facebook. You can see the image of the person. You can see how far away it is. You can get the direct. It's just so easy.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's the type of experience that mobile enables. There's a great company up in Seattle that's tackling this local classifieds type space.
So Josh, what parts of Craigslist, what tiny verticals out there do you think somebody hasn't thought of yet that you've been like, I'm just waiting for somebody to hit this and get some traction. I'll throw some dollars at these guys. What have you? Give us a little secret.
Sure. So I'll give you a couple themes first, and then I'll give you some examples. So the things I look for, I want marketplaces to have very high recurring usage, right? Okay. So a marketplace for wedding photographers, not interested.
Right. One time only, you're out of those. Okay.
Right. So high recurring usage, ability to standardize the offering. So it needs to be something anybody can do. Okay. It needs to be sort of irregular usage, and I think this one is sort of more subtle, right? I think the marketplaces for like house cleaners are sort of bad because one, I need really high trust. I want them to come once a week, every single week. So I will basically find a regular person that just comes once a week, every single week.
Okay.
I will give them a key, and I don't need an intermediary in that relationship.
Okay.
If I have very irregular needs where I need it, Friday night and then Monday morning, and I can't predict it.
Like
then
Uber.
One of these
taxi ride,
yeah.
Exactly. So the taxis are the perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to hire a driver.
Yeah.
But since it's a regular, you use it all the time.
Gotcha.
And so those are the sort of things that I look for. And Bill Gurley has done some excellent posts on sort of the qualities of great marketplaces.
Okay.
One industry that I think is ripe for this is actually massage therapists.
Massage therapists.
So, do you guys get massages?
I'm sorry?
Do you guys ever get massages?
Once in a while. I go with my wife sometimes. She'll drag me along. Yeah.
Okay. So, I'll go, once every couple months or something like that.
Right.
But it fits all these characteristics of, super highly fragmented thing, more or less a standardized offering. I don't know what the hell the different ones mean anyways. There's like deep tissue or I don't know the difference. I don't think anybody really knows the difference.
Right.
And, the experience today is really terrible because what do? You get all these stupid Groupons for massage therapists, or you look on Yelp and you see 100 people and you start calling and it's like, oh, sorry, we don't have any availability.
Right.
It's just so obvious to create a different platform for that.
Okay.
Which I think could be really cool.
Wow.
That's actually a pretty good one. Yeah, I had a friend who came back from a work trip where he was like working in a warehouse for a week for Mother's Day and came back and needed a massage to kind of relax from the thing. And like you're saying, it's not something you're used to doing, so getting the reviews is hard. And he kind of came back and was a little bummed out with his experience. A couple things that weren't optimal. And yeah, there could totally be a marketplace to help distinguish the good from the bad there.
Yep, and that's a key point too. Is the marketplaces that I like the most have a really heavy emphasis on quality. So another marketplace I'm a really big fan of is Contently, based out in New York.
Okay. Yeah.
And they have a network of freelance writers that do content marketing.
Right.
But they have really high quality, and they obsess over it, and I love that.
Yeah. I love that too. So we can go after the high end of that market, so to speak.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Right, well, so I'm glad we're talking about this. So let's just say, I'm just gonna make this up. Let's say me and Jeff one day we decide, hey, you know what? Josh is totally right on with this massage thing. You and I, heck, you can bust out something in Node. I'll design something, and we're gonna create Massagely.com. Let's say, right?
Well, I do know two companies that are doing it, but
okay. All right. So anyway, with our fictitious idea, I'm like, all right, so let's throw some money at AdWords. Let's try to get some providers in. Maybe we can get us some service people that might actually try the service out. Maybe we'll just do LA, right, to start off. Let's say, and then the early customers that are thinking about joining on. Maybe we got a free offer or some sort of lead gen or we're launching soon or some way of baiting them to give us their email or phone number or some way, and then I'm on the phone talking to these guys. Hey, Julie, yes, thank you so much for registering on our site. We're launching next week. What are some of the questions I want to ask, or how do I use this as a customer development and do the whole lean thing? What are some of the early moves you'd make to try to?
Sorry.
No problem.
I have these
eco-friendly.
So I'm in a temporary office space that has these motion sensing lights, and so if I'm too still for a while, they turn off.
No worries. Yeah, but what would some of the early moves that you'd make trying to build the traction to try to convince a guy like yourself to throw some money at us?
So the number one thing is always the team. And so especially, in the early stages, you really pretty much just have team and market. Okay. You can look at a cool, interesting product, but it's unlikely that you have any, breakout traction of any sort of thing.
Right.
And so the thing that I would typically look for is a team that's, has extreme conviction and clarity, and can very clearly articulate all of the problems with the industry and why it's broken and why customers are going to want something different. And, I think the people that describe something just in terms of like, hey, we built this product and it has these features and, bam, 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 you can do this.
Right.
They're not as compelling as someone that can just describe, hey, the massage industry is broken because, the therapists are all freelancers for these intermediary corporations that are these places, they can just describe some of the root problems.
Okay.
So that's always first and foremost.
Okay.
I already believe in the market because I told you I believe in the market.
Right.
But then I think the thing that you need at that early stage is some sort of believable, like, unit economic type story.
Okay.
And to me, that means, hey, maybe you've only served 10 or 20 people and you've done it completely manually with the sheet in Excel.
Right.
Sure.
I can imagine the system that automates that, right? That's not hard to imagine.
Yeah.
We've all seen hundreds of different things that have done that.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I need to see is, hey, you can, do this little advertisement and get somebody signed up for $5.
Gotcha.
You can broker an introduction and make a transaction happen.
Right.
Doesn't even need to be on your platform. You can just make the transaction happen. And I've seen some that just let the cash transact on the side, and they just know it happened, and they assume that, hey, we can capture it later. That's fine.
Gotcha.
And then you just need to see, from my perspective, an obscenely high Net Promoter Score, right? Are you guys familiar with Net Promoter Score?
No, tell us more.
Yeah, tell our audience.
So I'm a big believer in it. It's a methodology developed by this guy, Fred Reichheld, at Bain Consulting, I don't know, a decade ago or something. Who knows? And it's just a single customer satisfaction question. And so you ask every customer, hey, how likely would you be to refer Rev to a friend or colleague?
Okay.
And it's a scale from 0 to 10.
Okay.
And basically a promoter is a 9 or a 10. A detractor is anyone from a 0 to 6.
Oh.
And then the net score is your percentage of promoters minus your percentage of detractors.
Wow. Huh, that's very interesting. So we're looking definitely for those that are in the 9s, 8s, 9s, and 10s to skew that direction. Am I wrong?
Yeah, 9s and 10s. 7s and 8s are considered passive.
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay.
Neutral, basically.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Wow, so we really want an amazing customer experience.
All the way up to a 6 is a negative detractor.
Yeah.
It's pretty high up the scale.
Wow.
Correct. And you know why? I think it's because, like, if you do this mental exercise where you just think of, the last 10 stores that you went to or something like that, and you rank them on that scale.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think, hey, what if someone asked me, should I go to that store? If you were a 9 or a 10, you'd be like, oh yeah, oh my God, it's so awesome, you got to go.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's just a super awesome endorsement.
Right.
Yeah.
7 or 8, you'd probably be like, yeah, it's okay.
It was good. Yeah, it was okay. Yeah.
If you're a 5 or a 6, that's bad. That's like, you're just like, eh.
Wow.
The 0 is, oh God, stay away. But if you ask someone, hey, should I go there? And you're just kind of like, eh.
Right.
So what's the best way to get these results from your users or potential customers?
To measure the score?
Yeah.
And to not, because obviously everybody will give you lip service if you're sitting right in front of them. So how do you get them to be honest here,
Yeah. Honestly, the best way, or I think one of the most interesting ways now, is actually through text message. So, I've done tons of email surveys for this in the past, but increasingly I just don't think people read email, and it's getting harder and harder to get people to click on anything in an email.
Right.
But everybody reads text messages.
Yeah, we actually had a great conversation about this, and like Mobile Storm is a technology I've used, and someone else that I think can do this over SMS has like 100% open rate. You know, you open every SMS you get, you read it,
and possibly
What's it called?
people might feel a little bit more inclined to be honest with you, possibly even via SMS, because it feels a little more not anonymous, but less what's the right word?
Intrusive. It's not like
less intrusive. I don't even know if that's the right word. It's just people maybe feel a little bit more emboldened. Maybe, I don't know.
So they just reply right to the text message with a number 1 through 10 kind of thing.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually, so in fairness, I've never done it for Net Promoter Scores, but I've done it for other feedback systems.
Okay.
And the response rate was phenomenal.
I tell you, Josh,
so how'd you do that? Do you use a technology tool like a Mobile Storm, or did you just do it kind of with your network?
That was with Twilio.
Yeah, Twilio. I was going to say, yeah. This sounds like a great little startup right here. Just this simple idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, Net Promoter Score for startups. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, very good.
Wow. So
connect a couple APIs together after the show.
I know, exactly. Yeah. All right. So now you're firmly entrenched in the. Are you mostly doing VC stuff now, or are you? You mentioned this other startup you're working on. What are you spending your time doing beyond obviously talking to guys like us?
Sure. Hey, you got to build the personal brand.
Yeah, yeah.
That's part of being in venture capital.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. By the way, I loved your writing on the full time is the lifeblood and all that stuff on your blog. It's very insightful.
Yeah, it's just pulling up your blog.
I mean, come on, man. Yeah, you've been in the trenches at oDesk, and there's so many marketplaces that are launching now. I think,
Yep.
yeah, this is super valuable information.
Yeah. There's people usually cite the VCs are liars one. That was that was the one I get a lot of shit for.
Okay.
No, I spent I'm full time as a venture partner at Sigma West.
Okay.
I've led one investment that we haven't announced yet.
Okay.
It's broadly in the analytics SaaS space.
All right.
Phenomenal team. I'm constantly blown away about just how much they accomplish with like 3 people.
Wow.
And always looking for new deals, especially in the marketplace spaces, any sort of online labor things.
Okay.
And I'm also a board member at, as I mentioned, Rev, which is focused on. And you guys should get an audio transcript once we're done with this thing.
Okay, so tell us about more. What does Rev do?
So,
Rev.com, right?
Yeah,
Sorry?
Rev.com. Yeah.
Let me pull it up. That's rev.com, right?
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
there we go. It's transcriptions. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. So what we're doing is basically a verticalized services,
Okay.
and so it's actually not like oDesk in that oDesk is about building teams, and Rev is really about buying services. So you for example would upload a document and you get a translation.
Okay.
You would never hire a translator on Rev.
Okay.
Basically, we manage that entire workflow, and we only deal in things that can be completely standardized or highly recurring needs, and we manage the entire experience from start to finish.
Wow.
So,
Can I ask real quick, is there a chance you're using oDesk on the back end to
Yeah, I was
fulfill
just gonna say that.
Because who was it? We were talking to someone else that was doing that, and you're like, oh, wow, that's cool.
Who was that?
Just recently, yeah.
that we're going out to oDesk. Oh, I can't remember
They're
now.
using
But
the oDesk
they basically
API.
have a trusted set, and then beyond that trusted set, they'll mine oDesk in the back. Without.
I think it was for the SEO marketing.
Oh yeah, it was. Yes, yeah, it was DAWS.
Does.com.
Yeah, DAWS.com. Yeah.
oh yeah, did you talk with Anji there?
Yeah,
Yes.
Anji. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
Very cool.
you've heard it. Oh, yeah, you guys know each other.
We do.
Okay.
Great guys. Also doing some cool stuff. So
Very cool.
we're huge fans of oDesk. We are not using oDesk for transcription.
Okay.
We are using oDesk extensively for lots of other things.
Okay. So give us some
but
examples.
not
I want to
for
know
transcription.
how does a startup leverage oDesk, and what's some of the good use cases here?
Just in general.
In general, yeah. What are you guys using oDesk actually specifically?
A lot of customer support activities.
Okay.
Building a great team there. oDesk is an absolutely amazing platform for building teams, and I recommend it to everyone to basically build distributed teams.
Yeah.
And I think the amazing thing is you can get very highly motivated workers, really dedicated to your projects throughout the world.
Yeah.
To do everything from software development to graphic design, writing, content marketing, customer service, data entry, like literally you name it. I saw a helicopter mechanic on there. So you can do everything on there. What we're doing at Rev is just different. We're focused on very small businesses with very specific, well-defined needs.
Okay.
Business is going great.
Yeah, so this is great. So right now you have audio transcription, business translation, and certified translation.
Okay.
Are you saying that you're going to be evolving into more business services in the future?
Very possible.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay, very cool. We actually had a young lady from Voice Money on, and they were doing. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yep.
Okay, and they were doing the whole, taking text to audio via the API, which I thought was brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, like voiceovers. They took Fred Wilson's AVC blog, and since he's got the Creative Commons stamp, they just took it and turned it into a podcast for him at avc.fm, I guess. It was pretty creative idea.
Nice.
I thought from as a visual designer, my background is in design. I've tried to source some design work on oDesk, and I've had mixed results. And it would have been, I think for me, when every time, I think it would have been nice to have a different UI. So maybe you're just looking at portfolios, like a grid of just imagery, as opposed to the list version, or some way of browsing vis-a-vis the content they're creating. I don't even know how you do that from a
Yeah,
programming
so the
standpoint.
way I see it, there's almost a potential to like layer on more curated stuff like you're doing,
Yeah.
on top of the oDesk sort of platform, whether
Yeah,
you use
yeah.
them or not.
Exactly.
I can totally see, how you guys are abstracting that even another layer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you should talk to the folks at oDesk, and you should give them the feedback.
Or I could just create my own startup based on this idea. And then approach you after we got a little traction.
There we go.
All right. So, all kidding aside, how much are you spending? A lot of time with Rev? Are you doing a lot of as a half and half? How do you split your day and week?
No. I mean, I'm a board member, so that has the typical board duties. The founder is a good friend of mine, and we talk all the time.
Okay.
But that's on the side. My job is venture partner at Sigma West, and so my time is spent working with the first company, first deal that I led recently,
okay,
and looking for new investments. So if anybody's out there watching and has some cool marketplace, I would obviously love to chat with you. But yeah, that's where I'm spending my time.
Gotcha. So obviously you mentioned team, the product market fit, probably. Any other things that key things that you're looking for when the marketplaces approach you?
It's those same sort of things that it's a lot of the themes we've been talking about, that customer effort, let's say. So, first of all, I like markets where people are already spending money on something, right? There's some startups you see where they're trying to get people to pay for something that has always been free, and it's like, I just don't understand how that's going to work.
Gotcha.
So you get something where people are already spending money, but it's just really inconvenient, and somebody can come along and create a step change improvement in customer effort. And they can take something that used to take 10 minutes and they can make it 10 seconds. Or maybe it used to take 10 hours and now it takes an hour. Whatever it is, It needs to be like a colossal change in that customer effort.
Gotcha.
And I think that's exactly like take Airbnb. They just made it so easy to find something.
All right, so I just want to go into this a bit. Me and Jeff been talking about hackathons and about the startup weekend and all these different startup events that are going on. It seems very trendy now. What's your feeling behind this recent startup craze the last couple of years? It's been. I mean, do you feel like it's kind of a craze right now, or is it me?
I think it's a phenomenal thing for the ecosystem. I'm a huge fan of Nassim Taleb, and have you guys heard of Anti-Fragile?
No, I haven't heard of that, Jeff.
I haven't heard of Anti-Fragile.
Yeah.
So basically, he poses the question, what's the opposite of fragile? And what would you guys say?
Hardened or something.
Hardened, yeah. Heavy.
Yep, sure. So like hardened, robust, something like that, right?
Right.
But if you think about it, fragile means, if you smack something, it's going to break.
Right.
Robust means you smack something and nothing's going to happen. So anti-fragile would be you smack something and then it gets better.
Okay.
Somehow it really should be the opposite of breaking, which is somehow getting better.
Right.
And,
okay.
And if you think about his examples, should read the book, by the way, it's phenomenal.
Okay.
The examples are, look at Wall Street, and every bank is completely interconnected, and everybody's like taking these home mortgages and sliced and diced them, and
right.
Sent them off, and everybody's got credit defaults, like some crazy system that nobody can understand.
Right.
That means when one person goes down, they all go down.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now take Silicon Valley and this ecosystem we have of hackathons and accelerators and incubators and all this amazing stuff that's happening.
Right.
we have startups failing every single day. Right?
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah.
You know, there's all these projects that are starting and everything fails.
Right.
But, you know, almost everything fails.
Right.
Some small percentage, when they win huge.
Yeah.
And so, like, all these little tiny failures don't really hurt the ecosystem. You know, you would think if you said to anyone, hey, we have an ecosystem where like 95% of the things fail, you'd assume it's a huge disaster, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's phenomenally successful because all these little failures are completely blown away by the 1 or 2 out of 100 that are mega big successes, like your Facebooks and LinkedIn's and whatever they might be.
Right.
And so, you know, all of those little startups, you know, it's, hey, maybe it's 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000. It doesn't matter. You're taking more swings at the bat, and we'll eventually find those big home runs. And Silicon Valley in California just has the most amazing ecosystem in the world.
It definitely does, man.
So at Sigma West, do you guys do anything particular? Follow any startup weekends? Do you go judge on any panels or participate with that in any sort? I mean, I know you talked about doing a little bit of seed, but I assume it's going to be more time, take more time, and be less returns maybe than the round A type fundraising.
Yeah. So occasionally I do get involved in judging some. We don't have any formal program that we're involved in. We're a little bit later stage in that we're typically looking at Series A investments.
Okay.
But yeah, I occasionally judge some of them, and you know they're always really fascinating things going on there with really passionate, motivated teams, which is great. And I think obviously you can't really create a business in a weekend. So I think they're good projects to sort of explore. And, if the team gets really excited about the opportunity and carries it forward for a few months to the point where they're really getting some traction, that's the sort of time when we might get involved.
So if you had to innovate in the hackathon and the startup weekend space, what would you recommend? Would you instead of having it a weekend, would you do a series? Like, would you say, okay, we got the great idea the first weekend. We get you guys have gotten 4 weekends only, and then we judge. Is that something you would probably bring in, or what's your feeling?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I don't think I'm close enough to it to have a great opinion. But I will tell you one thing that I've always thought is necessary within the ecosystem and is missing a little bit.
Okay.
Is basically you have all these people doing these weekend projects, these hackathons, incubators, whatever.
Yeah.
And they all tend towards consumer type products because that's everybody knows consumer products, right? Everybody can understand the need for photo sharing and stuff like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's missing is a better understanding of what some of these enterprise customers, like what are the pains that they have.
Yeah.
And, I would love to see some program that really draws in executives from, ExxonMobil and Pepsi and,
that's a great
HG,
idea.
whatever.
That is a great idea.
Really, because I think when you take all these unbelievably talented entrepreneurs and you really just show them a problem of like, hey, guess what? All HR departments are dealing with like 10,000 applications and nobody knows what to do with all this crap.
Right.
They're like, oh, okay, yeah, we can try to solve that.
Right.
And so I think this whole notion of sort of problem discovery of what problem should we address.
Right.
I do believe you need to be really passionate and about solving a problem. So you can't just like sign up for one without really thinking about it. But I do believe there's a missing link there. I don't know how it would work, but I'd love to see some more.
No, I think that's a great idea. Like maybe niche it out. Maybe have one just medical devices weekend or something, and one enterprise software weekend or something.
I like what you're saying about trying to draw the people out of the big corporate companies. I think as a developer, I love participating in this stuff, but sometimes when you have a high-paying job, you don't care. If you're doing it, it's just so that you can hack for a couple days, like it is an excuse, but. It'd be cool to see people coming out of the enterprise with their problems, with their baggage. Say, hey, for the last few months I've been struggling with this problem. Let's go fix it this weekend.
Right.
Exactly.
That would be a cool approach.
Yeah.
Let me ask you real quick while we're on the hackathon thing. I know marketplaces are your sweet spot, and mobile as a platform, but are there any other like technologies that are sparking new innovation, like any of the real-time communication, bandwidth for video, any of that sort of stuff interesting, or are we still basically just trying to put together business models on internet, the consumer web or internet?
Yeah, none of them stand out to me as like really big, interesting enablers, other than obviously mobile. So yeah, nothing really stands out. I mean, certainly the things like Twilio that are making it just really freaking easy to integrate some telephony and SMS and stuff like that,
Right.
is definitely making apps better,
Right.
or at least easier to produce.
Right.
So that trend is phenomenal, but I don't think there's anything that really stands out to me.
I have a
Google Glass. You're not sold on
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. What's
the
your
watches or like wearable devices.
Yeah.
What
There
other
you go.
kind of
That's
crazy-
perfect. Yeah. Glass.
It's all just type,
wearable.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Internet of Things. Any of that stuff?
I'm not a believer in Google Glass.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. Some of the things are really cool. Fitbit is obviously doing incredibly well. GoPro's doing incredibly well. So there's definitely some things like that. And if you spend a day on Kickstarter, you'll see like just hundreds of, holy crap, that's cool,
Right.
sort of devices.
Any 3D printable type stuff like
Yeah.
I do think 3D printing is a big colossal trend, right? Because that is a true enabler. And basically, everybody's talking like, hey, hardware is like the new software. It's now becoming easy to create hardware companies, and that's true. And that's a phenomenal trend.
Yeah, that's gonna be huge. Yeah.
And so 3D printing for sure is a big enabling technology. I don't know enough of the companies in that space, but it's awesome.
That's definitely something. So, since we're talking a little bit about this, actually, I'm going to segue into this different topic. Sorry, Jeff and I have been suffering from a problem. We do these very long, in-depth interviews with guys such as yourselves in the trenches, and some of our shows last up to about an hour. And we've been looking very carefully at our analytics over time, within per clip, and we've been noticing that after about 8 to 10 minutes, there's a fall off, and then another one after about 20 minutes is these fall offs, and so what would you say to guys like us to try to hold on to our audience? Is it people just don't have the time, and we just need to take these one hour interviews down to 5 minutes and somehow speed everything through and turn everybody into robots? Or what kind of advice would you give guys like us in this regard?
Yeah, so never been a publisher, but I looked at a few of the videos before I came on, and I think that watching I rarely watch a 20-minute video. The only time I will ever do that is pretty much a TED Talk or like Game of Thrones.
Okay.
And so
we got to get some dragons in our show, Josh.
Yes, that would be great. I would stick around for that. So, but no, like, listen. The thing about the reason TED Talks are so awesome is because it's highly curated content, which is ridiculously high quality. And so you just know it's going to be good. And so, I don't know, if I were you and you had an hour-long interview, I would cut it down to the 5 or 6 most interesting minutes. You can have the full version available somewhere, but to me, you want the highlights. Like, the whole thing isn't interesting. Just parts of it are.
So with that said, let me also ask you: is there any like great resources for entrepreneurs that you constantly find yourself giving out or referencing that our audience would have is right up that alley?
There's tons.
Just all the blogs and everything. Well, I'm just curious. Okay, another question: do you subscribe to any podcasts, or you just don't have time for that right now, or have you found yourself using anything like Stitcher in the car yet for your drives? Or
so luckily I don't have to drive anymore. I don't have a commute, but I am a fan of Stitcher.
Okay.
I read most of my news. For me personally, I usually like to read text. I don't do a bunch of video and podcasts. That's just my personal preference.
Right.
But one resource I will mention where I participate is a company called Clarity, which you guys probably know.
Oh yeah.
Clarity FM.
Yep.
I think it's a phenomenal tool. I'm on there as well as hundreds of entrepreneurs and VCs and other really successful people that are available as advisors for a couple bucks a minute.
Right. No, this is a great idea for our marketplace. Awesome idea.
How's that experience worked out for you, taking those calls in real life? There's a real easy and friendly, I think, to be able to click the call button and get a hold of you.
Right.
How have those conversations turned out for you?
So almost all of the conversations have been very good, and I've given some feedback to the company before, so I don't mind saying this. I think the biggest challenge is, once again, around customer effort. It's a pain to schedule things.
Oh, okay.
And that's actually the biggest pain. I don't know how to do it, but if it can become a more instant, easy connection where it just takes half a second to schedule the call and it's in my calendar and it's done and ready to go, that's great. Right. But if I have to do a lot of back and forth and rescheduling and this time doesn't work, how about this time? And it's just agonizing.
Diminishes the value.
Yeah,
I don't want to spend 15 minutes to schedule a 20-minute call. It just
yeah. So how would one go about solving this? Are they asking you to share your calendar with them so that everybody shares their calendars, the providers themselves?
I don't know. It's not an easy problem, but I'm confident that they will solve it, and I think it's a great company. And they're, at the end of the day, they're providing a phenomenal experience. I think it's early for them, and they're sorting out some things, and I have a really high degree of confidence that they'll get it.
So from raising a seed round perspective, would Clarity be a great tool? So as a biz dev tool, almost like reaching out to all these founders, previous startup founders, and be like, hey, do you have any connections with some VCs? Blah blah. Have a lot of your calls been around that, or?
Yeah, some have. I mean, most have been marketplace entrepreneurs that are looking for some guidance about the thing you started off talking about, the chicken and the egg problem. That's probably the most common. I've never used it from from being an entrepreneur side, but yeah, I mean, I'm certain you can connect with some great people there, and I think if the great thing about this community is everybody wants to help each other. Everybody wants to see people be successful, and so I think if you go in and you're authentic and clear and candid and passionate and respectful and all the good sort of behaviors, people will help out.
That's cool.
But nobody wants to be sold to, and so people coming in and saying, "Hey, Josh, I have this great idea for a marketplace. I'm looking for $500,000. I'm already back off."
All right. Chill out. So, can you tell us, as candid as you possibly can, about some of the early big, huge mistakes oDesk did, you made while being there at oDesk, that we can possibly learn from? Big, huge mistakes, man. We totally blew it here.
There were obviously mistakes made, but I really can't talk about the specifics.
Okay.
I think the
fortunate
thing is,
why they're not watching? Nobody from oDesk is watching.
It's public.
All right.
We'll have lunch later. No, look, great companies are going to make tons of mistakes and have, as long as they learn from mistakes and course correct quick and have more successes than failures, it'll work out in the end. And I think you've all seen the chart of, the road to success is a very bumpy line.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh,
So, oDesk was no different. But yeah.
It's how you handle it, right? And so you guys were able to overcome more success than failure.
For sure.
Well, okay, so I'm sure maybe you got wind of a little bit of all the stuff that Google's doing recently with the I/O conference. I'm going to talk a little bit about them. What's your feeling? I mean, I've been amazed at Hangouts, and they're disrupting the whole Skype space and all that. What's your feeling? With Hangouts specifically as an enabler technology. I know Verbling, you may or may not have heard of them for doing
YouTube added paid subscriptions too recently.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. It's as an enabler for maybe marketplace, for language learning, for whatever types of ideas. What's your feelings on that?
So honestly, I don't know that I've followed it. You guys, I think, know a lot more than I do about this area. But there's no question, like you pointed out a great example, language learning. there's companies like Colingo and Lingo Live, I believe, that are doing some language learning startups that are phenomenal. They're really cool startups. And the great thing is they can launch a beautiful video conferencing system like that in a weekend, right? And it used to be that was going to take 2 years.
Right.
So yeah, there's no question. It's just getting easier and easier to experiment with these business models, and it's really making the lean startup type approaches possible, where you can just let's test it out, let's see what works.
Yeah.
That's what I've been telling them. Well, I've just been studying all of the Google announcements, and the product we're using right now, the Google Hangouts, is so powerful. And it's just really a game changer for how quickly you can test things. And like you said, a lot of what it seems people are using this for actually is language learning. Because you can get 10 people in here and all hang out in their bed on their laptops with headphones, talking English or reading English to each other or learning a new language. It's really interesting.
Cool. Very cool. I need to dig into it more. I haven't looked enough. But, the whole education space is obviously a fascinating space right now because everything's up in the air. And actually, Bill Gates had a tremendous video that I just ran across yesterday, which he pointed out the biggest problem with the education system is a lack of feedback for teachers, which I thought was fascinating. Because he said that 98% of all teachers, they only ever receive one word of feedback, which is satisfactory.
Wow.
And that's all they receive through their entire career. But, you think about your job and my job, you're getting feedback all the time. You just asked me feedback about what you could do better 5 minutes ago, and I gave you some specific examples. I don't know if it was good or bad feedback, but you're getting useful comments. And they're never getting that. And he pointed out how programs in I don't remember if it was China or Korea or wherever, but they have very structured continuous feedback systems that are really cool. So
wow,
interesting.
That's what's missing in our system.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I think you're completely right about that.
It's tough to be a teacher out there too. I mean, and we struggle sometimes not getting feedback on the show. We asked you, but our audience, we're reaching out to our audience right now and saying, hey, give us feedback. And if they don't, it's tougher. Like, we know they're watching. Like, the students are in the chairs, but they're not, giving you the honest feedback is brutal. Because, at the end of a long year or whatever, it's just tough.
Yep.
And I have to tell you, when we log into our analytics, so we're definitely getting a lot of feedback that way. And some of it is painful to watch. I'm like, oh my God, what do we got to do? We got to cut these things down. But all right, well, Josh, it's been really great having you on. If you could share some parting advice for people that are building marketplaces, please give us your top
struggling
2 or 3
entrepreneurs like us.
Yeah.
From my perspective, design something that is a phenomenal customer experience, right? Take an industry, take a vertical, take something, look at the status quo and just completely redesign it and create just an unbelievable customer experience that gets people saying like, wow. And then you got a good start.
Wow, and obviously you don't need technology. You can do it all off Excel spreadsheets and do all these sort of old school methods. But design it well. Wow. Okay. Very cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for being on our show. We're going to definitely check back with you in a few months and see what's going on with you. Hopefully, we'll have you back on.
Yeah. Thanks for the advice. We'd love to hear about your company that you've just funded around the corner here. So hopefully there'll be a lot more of that the next time we check in with you. You can tell us all about your portfolio.
I'll get them on board once we announce the deal.
That sounds great.
Analytics. We covered Vero and some other interesting analytics platforms, and we would love to talk with these guys when you announce it.
Oh, absolutely. We had this great guy on that runs this phenomenal blog called Conversions Excel, and that's all he does is talk about optimizations, analytics, and stuff.
Cool. It's just called Conversions Excel.
Yeah, he's really great. He's gotten on the top of Hacker News 3 times, and
it's all about quality content,
Yeah.
It's just really, really all about that.
Yeah, he talked a lot about content marketing as his enabler and how he drives traffic and stuff. But are you down here in LA at all, or do you come down this part of the world?
Once in a while, so I'll look you guys up.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm down here in San Diego too, the sunnier, cleaner air part of the SoCal. So
Nice.
if you're ever in Mexico, come hit me up.
All
There's
right.
some cool startups out here actually too, and I'm starting to try to check out the co-working spaces and incubator scene and all that.
Yeah, we have one of our companies, Mogul, is down in San Diego.
Okay, great.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks again, Josh. I truly, truly appreciate it, man. It's been really wonderful having you on.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. It was fun.
Really appreciate your time. Thanks.